Welcome to the Poly Champions YouTube. Do you know how movement works in Polytopia? As in roads, terminal tiles, zone of control, boosting, and polarism? In this movement guide, you'll learn all of that and more. Let's dive in. Think of movement in Polytopia as currency. Each unit has a certain amount of movement points it can spend to get from one tile to another. Most units have one movement. For these units, moving from one tile to an adjacent tile incurs a cost of one movement. Some units, like riders, have 2 movement, and a few, like the knight, have 3 movement. A rider on regular tiles, like no roads or forests, can move 2 tiles in any direction. A knight on regular tiles can move 3 in any direction. With naval units, boats have 2 movement, while ships and battleships have 3. Naval units never get movement bonuses, other than the rare exception of a boost from a shaman. More on that later. Roads reduce the cost of moving to half a movement point, or 0.5 movement points. For a rider, that means being able to move 4 tiles on roads instead of 2. Village and city tiles count as a road tile. However, moving from a road to a tile with no road, or vice versa, always costs 1 movement. Also, your unit will always move if the unit has movement points left. So a rider can move 3 tiles with 2 roads. You can also make the rider reach 3 tiles if you have 2 roads ahead of the unit. In this case, the first step costs 1, then half a movement point for each of the 2 road tiles to reach the village. Since you can't put a road on a mountain, moving down a mountain always costs 1 movement point. Here, neither the warrior or the rider can reach the village. Even with the roads, the units can't get there. A rider can move a max of 3 tiles away from a mountain because the first step costs 1 movement. However, a road into a forest is only treated as a road if the unit is on an attached road. Without a road connection, the forest acts as a terminal tile. We'll talk about that more later. Knights have 3 movement points, so those units get a maximum range of 6 tiles with roads. There are a few exceptions with pushing and boosting, which can give you a little bit more range, but we'll get to those later. Not only can your units benefit from roads in your territory, you can also use neutral roads to add movement. If you have a peace treaty with another tribe, you can use your allies' roads as your own. You cannot use roads on enemy terrain. Now let's look at how terrain affects movement. Forests and mountains are considered terminal tiles. Think of these tiles as stop signs. They drain all the unit's movement points once you step on them without roads, forcing the unit to hit the brakes. The way you circumvent this is by placing roads that go through the forests. And note, you cannot place roads on mountains. Roads give you the green light to keep going. Besides mountains and forests, there's one more type of tile that counts as a terminal tile: the zone of control. Any tile adjacent to an enemy unit counts as a terminal tile, except for units with sneak, but more on that later. And roads don't negate this zone. Here, you can see my knight is partially blocked by the giant's zone of control. However, there's one way to hit the catapult. Once a unit hits a tile within the zone, it has to stop moving, but it can still attack. For units with the persist ability, like knights, they can attack and keep going in a chain. For units with the escape ability, like riders, They can attack, then move again. How can you use the zone of control to your advantage? There are many ways. You can deny access to villages, prevent sieges, stop your opponent from unsieging, and block enemy naval units' movement with your ships. Here's an example where the zone of control can work for and against you. Let's say you want to siege the city, but there's a Qinshi warrior and its zone of control is blocking your rider's access. You also see that there's a Qinshi rider to the west within striking distance to help unsiege. You can build a road to bring your eastern rider, attack with 2 riders to siege the city, then position your western rider to prevent the unsiege with its own zone of control. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Do you want speed? Fast expansion that can't be beat? Switch to Oumaji. The Oumaji tribe covers ground fast, reaching more villages and ruins than any other free tribe. Plus, for extended range and double the speed, add the roads tech to blast past the competition. Oumaji reaches here, here, and here. Oumaji is the Square's fastest growing tribe network. Switch to Oumaji today. Terms and conditions apply. Roads tech not included. Tribe not responsible for poor resource rates or bad explorers. Rider movement rates are subject to mountain and forest tiles. Double speed offer not available on water maps. Expansion rates are comparisons based on free tribes, Barter, Qinshi, and Imperius only. Switch to Oumaji.
Polaris has a couple features that affect movement. The skate ability allows units to treat ice tiles as roads. That's why your starting Mooney can go farther across ice than over land. Without Polarism, a unit moving from ice to a road costs 1 movement point, the same as moving from ice to a land tile with no road. Similarly, without Polarism, going from a road to an ice tile takes 1 movement point. Polarism is like roads on ice. With the glide ability, non-skate units, like riders, can move on ice as if the tiles were roads. One small difference between Polarism ice and roads is that units cannot travel through a village as you would with roads. Neutral villages are not connection tiles for ice. Freeze is another ability that is unique to Polaris. A frozen unit cannot move, attack, or retaliate. Freezing puts the unit out of action for a turn. Now to Cymanti. A boost from a Cymanti shaman adds 1 movement point to a unit, so a boosted hexapod can move 3 tiles. Plus, since hexapods have the creep ability, forests do not act as terminal tiles. Once a boosted unit attacks or is attacked, it loses its boost. A boosted unit also loses its boost after claiming a village or a ruin. Oh, and there's another thing to point out with the creep ability. While units with creep, like hexapods and cloaks, can move across forests without a penalty, they also cannot use roads to move farther. Even though this cloak is on a road, it still only gets to move 2. The sneak ability negates the zone of control, so those units can move past an enemy unit without triggering that stop sign. Centipedes have some unique movement traits that change when they get segments. Centipedes without segments have 2 movement points. Once they get a segment, that gets reduced to 1 movement. Boosting a centipede with no segment gives it 3 movement. But regardless of a boost, a centipede with segments will only move 1, although the boost still gives an attack bonus. Forced movement, or a push, moves a unit 1 extra tile. The best example is the poly push, Creating a polytar moves the unit in the direction it was going. You can also do a giant push to give extra movement. This is great for units without the dash ability, like catapults, who cannot attack after moving. With a push, they can move and still attack. Units that were not previously moved will be pushed towards the center of the map. That's pretty much all there is to movement in Polytopia. Let us know in the comments what other types of strategy guides you'd like to see. Please like and subscribe, it helps us a lot. To join the Poly Champions server and get on a team, click the link in the description. Take care, see you in the next one.